Now that is the kind of episode we need to see from Fargo. Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Fargo Season 1, Episode 6, Burdain's Ass. And this episode, oh my god, it was amazing. I loved this episode. I thought it was a fantastic episode. I loved everything about this episode. Everything in this episode was completely amazing. I really did love this episode, because finally, you know, the last two episodes have been good, but there hasn't been too much happening in these last two episodes. We didn't find out anything we didn't already know in this episode, and that was a problem for me, especially with last week's episode. I was ready to give up on the show, but this episode just pulled me right back in, because this episode was just, so much shit went down. The episode was so intense, it was so crazy, and I love that about this episode, when Fargo can be so intense. And what I really like about this episode? They went from comedy to really, really dark in this episode. The show became very, very dark in this episode, and I really love that about this episode. So, let's just get to it. We're first going to talk about Lorne, because Lorne, by far, had the most interesting plot. I mean, Lester had a great plot, too, but Lorne just crazy in this episode. Was so, so good. Basically, we see this Asian restaurant. We see this this boss. He's meeting with his henchman in an Asian restaurant. They're going over what appears to be financials as his Aussie underlying dominates the conversation. The boss is a man of a few words. Sam has to. Of course, Sam is dead, so he says his numbers may not to be confused with Mr. Numbers, and the boss man doesn't seem to like what he's hearing. The Australian is unsettled as he explains that Numbers and Wrench don't believe Hess's killing is related to the business. So it might be extra on the wife's side. They're on their way to apprehend the guy. So, basically, the head guy says, dead, not apprehend death, don't care extramental, don't care not related, kill and be killed, head in a bag, there's the message. He then stabs his fish, sucks on the head to make his point, and that was disgusting, but, I mean, great way to start the episode. This was just really intense. Then we see Dawn. Now, if you don't remember Dawn, 3 episodes ago, Lorne talked to this guy, left him in a pantry, and he's still trapped there. He's still trapped there this whole, and I find it actually hilarious that he's been trapped there this whole time, and nobody has done anything about it. It's just like, oh, there's a guy trapped in the pantry, who cares? I thought that was kind of funny, actually. But basically, he's really upset. His feelings were hurt. He's not going to get that split of the money, because Lorne lied to him. Lorne gets him out, and basically he has to then make a call to, and the only reason that Lorne got him out was because he wants him to make that call to Stavros. So he does it in like a Darth Vader voice, and Stavros is waiting for the call. It's snowing, and by the way, very, very important, there's a huge blizzard in this episode. Very, very important with the snow in this episode. Milos is staring at his ice scraper. He's sitting in front of his St. Lawrence stained glass window, and he's recounting how he got the money to make the supermarket king in the first place. So the phone rings, and basically, if you remember that story that Dawn told, the story that Lorne told in the 3rd episode, Dawn says it in like this voice. He says it like this: "Once upon a time, there was a little boy. He was born in a field, raised in the woods. He had nothing. In the winter, the boy would freeze, and in the summer he would boil. He knew the name of every stinging insect." I mean, he said it in like a really crazy tone, so, I mean, he told that story to him, kind of funny, but all Stavros says is, yeah, these parables are having the desired effect on all the, and all Stavros says is, yeah, but, you know, he's kind of upset about that. So then Stavros is instructed to make the drop at a parking garage. He hangs up the phone, and Lorne wants to know if it sounds like he's going to pay. But Dawn doesn't know what that sounds like. The trainer's used to Malvo is, the trainer's used to Lorne is almost up anyway. And to make that point, the hitman whacks his accomplice over the face with a blender. So yes, he just killed Dawn. I thought he killed him, but, I thought he did. But it didn't look like he did at first, but I think he did. Then we see Gus. He meets up at his apartment. He says he sent Greta to a friend where she'd be safer, which may be the smartest thing that he's done, because Greta's really not safe. So, I mean, I don't blame him for doing that. I really don't. He then meets up with Molly. Molly leaves her card and says they want to ask about a company car. She even writes down the plates, which will inevitably turn out to be a terrible decision, because Stavros believes he's mixed up in some shady business. He doesn't really know what's going on there. He just thinks there's definitely something shady going on. So, you know, Molly's clearly upset about that. But then Gus takes her on a date. She just wants more coffee, it seems like. It seems like she actually does care about Gus, and it was very interesting there. So, then we go to Lester, but I'll get to Lester in a second. Back to Lorne, though. We then see, then we basically see that Lorne is pretty confident that he's not going to get caught for this crime. He's pretty confident, that he's going to be fine with this, actually. He's very sure of the fact he uses the snowstorm as a backdrop for a killing spree. So when Don finally, wakes up, he finally realizes he's not getting any of that money. He realizes that. And he's duct taped to a stationary bike directly in front of the school. Lorne has a gun and is listening to a police scanner. And in the case, Stavros does call the cops. We want to make sure they're too busy to respond. And he places the gun in Don's hands, which are taped to the handlebars. And he's a soulless, crafty criminal. Don tries to protest. He's crying. Lorne tapes the gun to his hands. Don attempts to pull the trigger. And Lorne says, "That's okay. I'd be insulted if you didn't try." He basically, Lorne wants him to kill him, basically. It looked like that's what he wanted to do, is that he wanted to kill him. Lorne got his own gun taped to a chair by the window, and the time he's wearing gloves, he shoots into the street where people are walking. He doesn't hit them, but makes enough noise and damage for someone to call the cops almost instantly. Don finally sees where this is going. Lorne packs his own weapon and bag and exits out a back door. So, then this next scene, this is just where it got awesome, where all the shit went down. It was awesome here. It was really, really intense here. What we see is now a police showdown. It's really, really brutal, and it really is a true testament to how sadistic, and not just how sadistic, but how sly Lorne is. Like, he does a lot of things on the sly. He doesn't seem to care, and as I said, Lorne is just, he's one of those people he doesn't really care about anything, it seems. So, the team moves in. One cop triggers a tripwire, which fires multiple blasts into the street. By the way, I love the music that was going with this, and the song too. I thought it was definitely really, really intense. The cops return fire as Don tries to dodge the bullets, and the question is, was he hit? Don then manages to move the tape from his lips and screams, but he's too late, because they throw a bomb into the windows, and of course it goes off. Don is stunned, open the door, see a gun, multiple officers begin firing. Don is covered in a hail of bullets that forces his body to writhe left and right, firing. So, he's now dead, and Don's now dead. So Lorne then says, suspect is down, and everything seems to be going to plan, except for, then, you know, I thought that was really awesome the way they did that scene. I'm just like, that is an awesome quality scene there. I mean, that was awesome. I love that about that. I love that scene in the episode. I thought it was great. So then Lorne sees a car driving erratically. It swerves in front of him, slams on the brakes, rear-ending the car, which causes his gun to slide onto the passenger side floor, and he's boxed in by another car. And I mean, this was crazy. So, guess who gets out? Wrench then gets out from the car. You know, Wrench numbers. He's firing miraculously. Lorne can't reach his gun. Wrench makes it to the door, and Lorne kicks it out, causing Wrench to fall backwards in the snow. So, Numbers then gets out of the force car, heavy artillery in his hand. He looks like he's about to, like, kill Lorne. And, I mean, we knew Lorne can't die, because, as I said before, you try to kill Lorne, you're basically killing yourself, because if you try to kill Lorne, you're gonna die. We know that Lorne doesn't take shit from people. We know that Lorne doesn't let anybody doesn't let anybody kill him. So you try to kill Lorne, you die. So, basically, he goes near Lorne, but he escaped out the passenger side door, hiding behind another parked car. This alarm goes off, giving away his position. They continue firing, and then, basically, we also see that this is the same place that Molly's having coffee with Gus. Very great way. I love the way they did that, because we find out where they are. It's the same exact place where Molly's having coffee with Gus, and Molly tells the owner to call 911, and Gus requests backup, because they see what's going on. They're just like, seriously, they're just like, holy shit, what's going on? We gotta call backup, because obviously that's what the police do. So, Lorne attempts corner, because of course we know that Gus wants to catch Lorne. That's been his thing all season long. His whole season has been, I want to catch Lorne, I want to get him, and, you know, he thought this would be his chance to. So Numbers and Wrench sneak up behind the car, but he's gone. And, he's gone. So Lorne sees what appears to be a shed. He went into we don't know where he went because he just, like, disappeared. So I'm just like, did he literally just walk away? Turns out he actually went into a shed. Numbers and Wrench appear in and out of the snow. They all look like ghosts. So Lorne then slices the top. Then, when you're not looking, Lorne then slices the top of his hand with his knife, lets the blood trickle down in the snow, kills Numbers. So yeah, Numbers is dead. So, my thing is, now, Wrench does not have an interpreter, so, anytime we're going to see Wrench now, it's just going to be sign language, which I think is cool. I do like the way they do that on this show, that they have the sign language part of the show with Wrench, but at the same time, he doesn't have an interpreter. And then, probably the most surprising scene here is just, this is where it was awesome. I love this whole scene, because that's not the end of the scene. There's a whole bunch of other things going on, because Molly and Gus arrive on the scene. Gus sees it getting worse, and as usual, fender bender, words exchange. Molly sees this for what it is. There's a heck of a lot of bullets fired for a fender bender, and Lorne tricked Numbers. He goes to the door, subsequently stabbed in the back by Lorne, who was hanging out around the side. Numbers' gun goes off, signaling Gus and Molly. Molly takes off, and Gus wants to wait for backup. So, you know, Numbers is not dead yet, because he says who, and Numbers again says who. So he twists the knife, Fargo, and I thought that was just an awesome way he did it, because his last line is Fargo. That was great. She and Gus then arrive at the shed. Gus is most definitely correct in predicting that Numbers is dead. He knows he's dead. Then he notices that Molly has disappeared. She's MIA. He doesn't know where she's gone. And he's very worried, because as we know, he really does care about Molly. And he hears Molly in the distance, is saying, basically, announcing herself as a police officer. Then he hears gunfire, and someone shouts, "Halt!" And then he says stupidly, then he fires blindly into the snow, and he walks over. Molly's down. So, is Molly dead? I'm not sure if Molly is dead or not. It seems like, she is, but basically he's sitting there and he's crying. I mean, that was an awesome scene. I would have never suspected Molly to die this early. We have 3 episodes left, and Molly's already dead, and Molly was just such a huge character on the show, and now she's dead, so it's just like, I love that the show is not afraid to kill off major characters. It's great, because it really gets you to, when a show focuses on a character so much, you know they're gonna die. I knew Molly was gonna die, but not this early, and I thought it was awesome, that scene. I thought it was really sad, but just the look on Gus's face is so upset. He's really upset that this happened. And basically, Molly had a conversation earlier about wanting to be a cop. So, I mean, it was not wanting to be a cop. So, it's kind of like foreshadowing there. So, then we see, the big question is, where's Stavros? Because Stavros was the one who was told to, we didn't know what he did. But then, turns out he did drive to that parking garage with the money. But flashbacks how he found the money, and a call from Semenko, who can, basically, Stavros says probably a really, really important line. Probably one of the most important things he said, because as we know, from this point on, all Stavros has cared about is money. That seems what it is. It seems like all he's cared about is money, and he's only interested in money. But what he says here is really, really important. He says, it's not about the money. It's bigger than that. I know what I've got to do now. Give me an hour and head back. Tell the kid that I love him. And it's really big here. Stavros then attempts to leave the garage, and the attendant wants him to pay. So even though Stavros never even got out of his car, he tells the kid that God told him what to do, and that includes opening the gate. So the kid listens, lets him go without paying the $2. So he then drives to that spot on the side of the road in the middle of Minnesota, where he first found the briefcase full of money. And then, all of a sudden, he's grabbing the money, trudging through the snow. All this snow is just falling on. It was an awesome way they did that. I love that scene, because we see all the snow just going like, literally, it was like a blizzard. It was going like this. And it was just like, holy shit, this is intense. He grabs the money, trudges through the snow, over to the fence where he buries it, looks left, looks right, sees nothing but snow and fields, and then he shoves the ice scraper into the snow so the bright handle is sticking up, and he walks away. So then we see Semenko is driving Dmitri home. It looks like the snow is finally let up, and then, as I said, but it turns out that it's hundreds of fish are pelting the car, littering the road, and it was just like, Semenko can't even keep control. And guess who finds him there? Stavros finds him, thrown from the car on the side of the fish-covered road, face down in the snow, and he walks farther, sees the car flipped on its roof over an embankment, and Dimitri is covered in blood, motionless in the car, and he's really upset because that was and I love seeing this because from this point on, we've only seen Stavros care about money, and we saw that he really does care about something other than money, and it was a great scene because it just shows that this guy really does care about people. He cared about him. He was so upset to see him gone, and it was just awesome. And I loved Lorne's stuff in this episode because that was the most intense stuff in this episode. It was awesome to see, and I loved it. But that's not the only thing that happened in this episode, believe it or not. Yes, I know that was not the only thing that happened because also what happened was Lester. There was a lot going on with Lester in this episode that I can't wait to talk about. So let's just get to Lester. Lester, at this point, is on the verge of becoming Norman Bates. I'm going to say that right now. Lester, at the end of this episode, seems like he's becoming Norman Bates. Lester is back in that hospital. He really wants to go home, but, he can't, because that's up to the cop sitting outside of his door, who's obviously not going to let him go home. He's refusing to tell him why his room is being guarded, and, of course, Lester knows why. He's playing dumb, of course, because this is what Lester does. He plays dumb. This is what Lester does. He likes to play dumb, and we know that from his character. He just likes to play dumb. So, basically, then what happens is that he strips the IV out of his arm, tries the window, and it's locked, and he's trapped. And I'm just like, you trying to, like, kill yourself or something? And I knew it wasn't going to do that. But then he sees someone outside, hops back into bed, and it turns out that Chazz has come to berate him, and he thinks he's there to bail him out. That's what he thinks he's there to do. And it turns out that Chazz tells him what a bad brother and all-around terrible person he is, and he only knows the half of it. Chazz tells Lester what the cops are saying. They think he may have been hired a hitman to knock off Pearl, and Lester says, I swear to God to not do this anything, which is true, because Lester killed Pearl, so they don't know anything. It's just like, again, like, they don't know anything that's actually going on. They don't suspect it at all, because Lester's this cowardly guy who they never thought would do anything like this, so Chazz says, well, they think you did, so you've got something to give them someone. If you want this to go away, you have to give them someone. And to really drive his point home, you've been a burden my whole life. You're done. There's something wrong with you. There's something misleading. And I just thought that was awesome there, because this whole episode, this whole season, we've seen him be very jealous of his brother. And this is when the light bulb goes off in Lester's head. He then hops out of bed, starts pulling the covers off of his roommate. He sees this guy who's, like, bandaged up. He decides to throw the bandage sap onto his own bed, wraps the man in the blankets, covers his head so it looks like he's sleeping. So that's all we really see. Then guess what Lester does next? He then grabs the clothes out of the closet, and it's just like Lester I would have never expected Lester to do this. He's getting really sadistic in this episode. He's actually becoming, I think, more sadistic than Lorne, because Lorne has this, like, funny edge to him, but Lester's stuff was actually really serious in this episode. Lester's grabbing his clothes out of the closet, puts them under the covers, grabs bandages, starts wrapping them around his face, and basically he's trying to wrap himself up before the nurse arrives. And he does a good enough job, hops into his roommate's vacated bed, rolled out by the nurse. He moans out to really play up the charade, and then she leaves him. When she leaves, Lester springs into action. The bandages come off, the scarf and coat and boots go on, and he then pulls the bed through the opposite door so the nurse will think he's been properly moved into examination. So, he actually is by the staff locker room where he grabs someone's keys, walking outside into the snow, where it's, like, really coming down, pushes the remote clicker, sits down inside the car, and he's relieved that he's becoming pretty good at this criminal stuff. But there's more to it. He then retrieves the murder weapon from a hole behind the fish poster, so he pulls out a box, so that's what he hid, that's where he hid it, because Molly was trying to look in that washing machine last week. She couldn't find anything because he hid it behind the fish poster. He then pulls out a box full of old photos, grabs a Boyd or shot of Pearl, he grabs a pair of her underwear out of the laundry hamper, and it's on to phase 3. He then sneaks into Chazz's garage, calling out to see if anyone's home, opens the gun case, pushes back the rifles and shotguns, places the hammer, photo, and lingerie in the back shelf, pauses at a picture of his brother and his family, and basically he just feels a slight twinge of regret looking at the face of little Gordon. He opens the case again, grabs a handgun, walks into Gordon's room, wipes off the gun with a scarf, then places it into the kid's backpack. And Gordon is just standing there looking at him like, what's going on here? And Lester has no remorse, it seems. Leicester has literally no remorse, because it seemed like something was going to happen and that Leicester was going to actually have some remorse, but Leicester just literally walked down on this kid, because he's looking at him like he wants to say something, and Leicester looks like he's about to say something. He's just like, bye-bye, and then he leaves. So Leicester clearly just, something's not right. Leicester is, and then the very end of the episode, we see that Leicester did get back into the hospital. He did get back into the hospital, and guess what happens? He's in the hospital, and he's smiling like this. Like this sadistic smile. So Leicester is basically becoming Norman Bates. I'm going to say that right now. Let's call Leicester Norman Bates, because that's how sadistic he's becoming. Leicester is completely insane now, and I actually really like this side of Leicester, because up to this point, we've seen this, like, silly side of Leicester, and I love seeing that in this episode, and I just loved this episode. This was the game changer of the entire series so far, because all we've seen this show be is the Coen Brothers show. You know, the Coen Brothers show where there's a lot of drama, but there's also a lot of comedy. We saw that in this episode, but it was a lot darker in this episode. There's a lot of things I want to know about this episode. Do you think that Molly is dead? Personally, I think, yes, Molly is dead, but if Molly is dead, then Gus is probably going to become the main one, which I think that's where we're heading, because they had a lot of focus on Gus in this episode. What will Leicester do next? Leicester is becoming so sadistic. What is he going to do next? I don't know. What will Lorne do next? You know, that whole thing with Lorne and Stavros, we do see that Stavros does have a heart, so what's going to happen with Stavros and Lorne, we'll have to see what happens there. Because, you know, Stavros just thinks he's in some shady business right now. He doesn't really know the whole story of everything. And, are people going to find out what Leicester really did? You know, I think I have a feeling they're going to find out what he really did. And why did Leicester have that sadistic face? What do you think is happening to Leicester? Why is Leicester becoming so sadistic? And why does Leicester not care? I think it's Lorne's fault, personally. But we'll have to see what else happens. But again, I love this episode. Best episode of the season by far. If we keep getting episodes like this, then I'm going to be really happy, because these are kind of episodes that we need. That's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. My next review will be for the season finale of The Americans, and I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.